Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm McKenna Jordan. I'm the owner of Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas. And we are looking forward to tonight's event with New York Times bestselling author Steve Berry. And Steve and his wife, Liz, have come to the store many years. And I'm sad that they are not in store tonight, but we're certainly looking forward to chatting with Steve about this book. Before I bring him on, I'm going to go over a few things as those of you watching join. So first off, it's still a surprise to some people, but we are open for people to come in and browse. We've been open since Halloween, and we're in store Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6, and we would love to see you if you're local. Wear a mask and get some great books. Also, I want to mention a couple thriller events that are upcoming. We have CJ Box on March 2nd. Don Bentley and Nick Petrie on March 5th. And then we've got a pretty interesting event scheduled in the middle of the month. March 18th, we'll be hosting Harlan Coben in conversation with Michael J. Fox. That is a ticketed event. All you need to do is buy a signed copy of Win, the new Myron Bolitar book, and you will, I guess I should say the new Win book, and you'll be granted Zoom access. For more information, you can visit murderbooks.com, and we have our full schedule of events on there. We also have Murder by the Box, which is our new subscription box plan. There are 3 different plans. There's a Cozy Corner, Crime Fiction Legends, and Best of the Month. And people seem to be enjoying those. If you're a subscriber, all the February boxes have been sent out, and you should be receiving them soon. So I'm going to drop a link in the comments right now that has information on how to order copies of the Kaiser's Web. Also, we do have signed book plates for this book. So if you're interested in it, we would appreciate you considering ordering it from us. If you have any questions for Steve, we'll get to those shortly. And you can put those in the live chat in YouTube or in the comments on Facebook. And I will get those to him in a little bit. So that's a lot every night. But we're going to move on now. I'm going to bring Steve on and get him introduced. Hello, Steve.
Good to see you, McKenna.
Good to see you too. I'm sad we're not in store with Liz. I did get to see her ahead of time, so that's exciting to me to say hi to her. But we at least get to chat. Many of you tuning in, of course, know who Steve Berry is, but I'm going to go ahead and do his introduction for those people who are watching and new readers. Steve Berry is the New York Times and #1 internationally best-selling author of the Cotton Malone novels, among other books, and several works of short fiction. He has 25 million books in print, translated into 40 languages. With his wife, Elizabeth, he's the founder of History Matters, which is dedicated to historical preservation. He serves as an emeritus member of the Smithsonian Libraries Advisory Board and was a founding member of International Thriller Writers, formerly serving as its co-president. He's here today, as I said, to discuss the 16th Cotton Malone novel, if I've got that right, The Kaiser's Web. So, how are you?
Doing fine. It's amazing to hear that, 16 novels. And this is actually my 20th printed book this year.
It is amazing because we've been seeing you for most of them, and I can't believe we're at 16 already. But it's fantastic. So I always like to start authors with just an elevator pitch on this book, and maybe tell us a little bit about your series character, Cotton Malone.
Well, this book is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I've been wanting to send Cotton on an adventure that springs out of World War II. The problem is World War II has been done to death. I mean, there's like 8 billion things on it, fiction, nonfiction, you name it. But about 4 years ago, I was researching another novel, and I literally just stumbled onto something that had nothing to do with what I was researching. I was in an old bookshop. I noticed a book on the shelf. I pulled it off, and I started looking at it. And I came across something I didn't know existed, something that I didn't know even happened. It happened in the latter part of 1944. And I wanted to find out if it was true. So I did some more additional research, and I found out it was true and did happen. I can't tell you what it is because it will give away part of the book. So I don't want to do that. But it is something I came across. All of my books have that, something from the past that's true. And so then the book kind of sprang from that. I didn't write the book right then. It was a couple of years later before I would get around to writing the novel, but I put it away This book deals with the German national elections. Two candidates are vying for the chancellorship of Germany. They are oil and water. They're very much different in their approaches. They both know secrets on the other. The problem is the secrets may not be exactly as each one of them thinks. And Cotton gets caught up. Cotton and Cassiopeia both get caught up in these secrets and the unraveling of these secrets. And it takes them from Germany to South America, to South Africa, to Switzerland, and back to Germany. It's a real good move around the globe this time to some new places I've been wanting to send Cotton. And it all centers around what happened on the night of April 30th, 1945.
Excellent.
Now this is not a book about Hitler surviving the war and the Fourth Reich coming and all that. It's not, in fact, it's the furthest from that. But it is a book about someone else who was in the bunker that night, someone else who disappeared from the bunker that night and was never officially seen again, and that is Martin Borman. And he's a fascinating character from history, and this book explores what he put into place in the latter part of 1944 and how it still could affect the German national elections today. Now, you want to know about Cotton?
Yes, I do.
Cotton is a retired Justice Department agent, lives in Copenhagen, and runs an old bookshop. I created him in the Templar Legacy in 2006, and now we're 16 books in to his adventures. I don't want any readers who have never read me before to be put off by that. You don't have to read 15 books to understand this one. I write books where you can pick the series up anywhere you want, any place you want, and come in and out however you please. But Cotton is a kind of a different character from the Templar Legacy. He's evolved. He's changed. Each book I explore something new about his personality, and this book is no exception to that. So he's been my recurring guy. I've just been kind of fortunate that he's been around 16 books.
Well, you almost preempted my next question, which is, has Cotton changed in any ways that surprised you over the past 16 books?
Oh yeah, lots of changes have had come to him. He did one book. He did two things I thought he'd never do in a book. He had sex and he cried. That's right. My little over here reminds me of what it is. Yeah, he cried and had sex in one book, which I now thought he would never do. As I mentioned, it was off stage on some of that, but he cried on stage, and there's a reason why in that novel. Each book, as I said, I'd look at something of his personality. In this book, I explored his relationship with Cassiopeia, with it not being confrontational. They're working together as a team. They're trusting one another. They're relying on one another. They play off of one another. I've never really done that before. They've always kind of been at each other's throats. But this time, no. And I'm going to do more of that. I enjoyed that. It was fun. So it was more of him evolving into someone who's beginning to see her, in a much, much different light, and her seeing him in a much, much different light. So it was fun. And yes, he's a much different character than he was 15 years ago.
So talk to me like I'm a high school history student, and tell me about the bunker and what your what if is that happens in this book without spoiler alerts.
Well, the bunker, Hitler retreated to the bunker, and that's where he played out his final days. I'm fairly certain that he shot himself on the night of April 30th, 1945. His body and Eva Braun's body were buried supposedly up in the Chancellery Garden. The Soviets found the bodies, dug them up, took them off, and buried them somewhere where no one would ever find them. Stalin wanted that because he wanted the West kept off guard, thinking Hitler was still around, and he kept them off guard and allowed him a freedom of movement around them. That is the best guess that historians say now, particularly with the fall of the Soviet Union and the access to documents. Now, here's the thing. We don't really have a clue what happened in that bunker that night. Trevor Roper's book is really the definitive book on the subject, but he interviewed people who were in the bunker who were war prisoners at the time who had every reason to lie and embellish. We now know that most of their statements contradicted one another, and some of that information contradicts what was found in the Soviet documents when we got access to those. So the reality is we don't know what happened that night. We know Borman was there, and we know he left. But Martin Borman was never seen or heard from officially again after that night. So that's perfect for me, because now I can do whatever I want to with it, because we really don't have a clue. Supposedly, his body was found in 1973, and DNA testing in the 1990s confirmed it was Borman, but then they incinerated the body and scattered the ashes in the North Sea. So we have there's no way to verify anything. We only have the German authorities saying, yes, it was him and he's dead now. So we really don't know what happened. So it was interesting to delve into that, because I always thought we knew what happened in the bunker, but we truly don't.
That is fascinating. We already have a question in the comments basically asking the same thing, but I'm gonna ask my version of this to start with. So I know that you every year take a travel research trip. Had you already done your travel research for this before the pandemic? I mean, we're going to visit Chile and Switzerland and South Africa and all the places in this book. So what was your research like for this one?
Well, I did a lot of it. I was not able to go to Chile or to South Africa, so I had to do it the old-fashioned way. You don't have to go to a place to write about it, but it helps. Right. But I know people who did go to those places and told me a lot about them, so I was able to incorporate that in there. So no, the pandemic didn't hurt me for this book, nor for the next book or the one after. But for the one after that, yes, we were supposed to be in Romania last year.
Wow.
We didn't go. We'll probably try to go either in 22, but probably definitely in 23. We haven't traveled anywhere. We toured last year. We came to see you.
Mm-hmm.
We toured last year. We got back home middle of February, and then everything hit, and we haven't been anywhere since, and we won't. I will not get on an airplane again at the earliest until May of 22, if then, but that's the earliest that I could possibly. It's a little bit been okay not to go, but a little bit we miss it too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, same boat here. I'm normally in England in January and another international trip sometime in the summer, and we're at home. We travel from library to living room. So it's okay. You're right. We're doing the best we can. So the question we have, I'm going to go ahead against my normal policy since it's pertinent to the topic, though. And Rob was wondering,
came up on the.
Yep. So basically, are you going to do a trip in 2022, and where would you be planning to go if that's the case?
Is this you're talking about for research?
Yeah, I think so. He's saying he says a Steve Berry book trip is not happening. Yeah.
We have it scheduled. It was supposed to be in 20, and then they talk about 21, and we moved it. The Steve Berry and fans trip will take place in May of 22. We're going to go to Poland and see all the things from the Warsaw Protocol, and that's the next trip on there. Now, that's all going to depend on vaccinations, whether the country's open back up. There's a lot of things going to happen, but there's a pretty good odds that we should be able to travel by mid 22. Now it's not going to be the same. It's all going to be very different now, but that's the next trip. If anybody would like to go, they can go to my website, go to the events page. There's a link there. It's selling out if it's not already sold out, but we have a waiting list to put on there. We're limiting the trip to 40 people, all just what can get on one bus. We keep one bus only, and so we keep our numbers down. But I think there's a couple of spots left, but it's close to being sold out. So that's the next travel that I will actually be doing.
Nice. So I got distracted by a funny question. So Jeremy was wondering, and Liz can just answer from the background, did she get a pair of shoes or purse for this book?
She did.
I did. Don't
Get it? What'd you get?
Baby.
What?
You messed up that. I'm not going to do this.
Oh, I did. That's right. I remember now. Yeah. Well,
I got shoes. Was that Jeremy? Yes, Jeremy.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's put it this way: we had a disagreement on as to whether what she found was an error or it should be there. And after careful consideration, I concluded that it was an error. So she got a purse.
I think I got a purse and shoes. It was very good.
It was a pretty big one. Yeah, she found it, and yeah, she did.
Good job, Liz. I'm not surprised by that at all. She's quite the bright bulb there. So good job, Liz. Seems like a good deal all around still.
We had a very spirited discussion on that subject in this house that day.
I believe that too. So for technology in your books, are you always trying to do cutting edge, or how do you approach technology in your writing for Cotton?
I have a lot of technology in the novels. I'm a little careful with that. I have the Magellan Billet phone, which has tracking device into it, which is nothing significant, and the laptops that they use. I try to not. I don't have Cotton's world is not a high tech world. It really isn't. Yeah. So I haven't really dealt with a lot of that. Just phones and laptops is all. Not like Jim. Jim Rollins, of course, has all that cutting edge stuff and all that cool stuff in there. But we keep it kind of simple in Cotton's world. He's not as technology savvy as most people are.
Yeah, I only ask because anyone who writes a thriller has some take on that, and some people try to not put the latest and greatest because it's eventually going to be dated. But I feel like the Cotton books kind of hold up really well if you go back and read them, because he's not necessarily doing the latest and greatest thing every minute.
I don't really do that. And I made a conscious decision. COVID doesn't exist in Cotton's world because people are dealing with it every day. They don't want to read about it too. So I left it out. It doesn't exist, and it won't exist in Cotton's world.
So we were talking ahead of going live, and you said the next book's out in June. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, next year's going to be different for me. Cotton is actually going to take a year off. I'm switching publishers from Macmillan over to Grand Central, and they wanted to do a standalone. And I've had this character in my head for years who works for the United Nations. And so I'm doing a new standalone. Same kind of stuff, though. Action, history, secrets, conspiracies. It's a really cool thing from history. We're going to be dealing with the most stolen work of art in history. Now, you'll have to go dig that up and figure out what that is. But what's the most stolen work of art in history is going to be dealing with that. And I've had fun. I've created a new world. I mean, new people. It's modern day, and it's contemporary to Cotton's world, and a Magellan Billet is mentioned in it, but it's different motivations, different everything. He's younger than Cotton. He doesn't have a girlfriend, anything. He's got a little more free out there. He's like a combination between Cotton and Luke Daniels, like a combination of the two. It'll be fun. Then in 23 and 24, Cotton will be back.
Excellent. Well, since you mentioned it, how is Luke Daniels?
He's doing very, very well. He's taking this book off. He took this book off. He'll be back though next in 23. He will be back in 23. But he's actually got something very exciting happening with Luke Daniels. He's going to get his own series.
Oh.
Part of my deal with Grand Central, we're doing 3 Luke Daniels books. So Luke will have his own 3 books, and I'm going to be writing those with my good friend, Grant Blackwood.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Grant is a #1 New York Times bestselling author. He wrote with Cussler, he wrote with Clancy, and he wrote with Jim Rollins. So he's a very experienced co-writer. I was thrilled to be able to talk him into working with me, and he's working on that book now. The first one will come probably in 22, but certainly in 23. So it might be 23, 24, 25, but I think it's going to be 22, 23, 24. So he's going to have his own series. And I've been wanting to do that for a long time, to get Luke out there, kind of branch out on his own.
Perfect. So I'm going to go back to my questions for a second, and we'll go back to crowd questions. We're getting crowd questions. Don't be shy. Pop any question in there. There's no such thing as a dumb question. And we'll get to them in a little bit. So I want you to talk a little bit about History Matters.
That's our foundation that Elizabeth and I created about 12 years ago. And we go around and we help communities raise money for historic preservation. The main way we do it is we put on a writer's workshop, and we've taught over 3,000 students. And you buy your way into the workshop with a contribution, and all of that money goes to the project we're there to support. For example, in Houston, a few years ago, they found this old flag in a garage, and it was the city of Houston's very first flag. And they located it. It was in terrible condition. And we came in that day. We did a lunch, which everyone bought a ticket to. It came to. Then we did a writer's workshop. And we raised about $30,000 that afternoon, and that was all used to restore that flag. This is kind of projects we do. We've done about 80, and we've raised a little over about $2.2 million for those projects. Now, we didn't do anything in 20, and we haven't done anything in 21, but we're looking at 22 now. Whether we can do it or not, again, it's going to depend on what happens, but certainly we'll be back in business in 23.
Excellent. Yeah, we were there for that that History Matters luncheon with the Houston flag, and it was pretty amazing. Okay, so when you do need to do some research, is it all books? Do you have a roster of experts you call? What's your favorite?
All books.
All books.
You look behind me, right over my shoulder, is a lot of those. Those are little travel guides. You know, when I go to a particular castle or a place, I buy all the little brochures and all the things that they have there that's in English. And they're back there behind me over my shoulder, arranged by country. There's probably a couple thousand there because, you know, they're very thin. And I use those all the time. And then right over here, I can give you a little thing. See all those books right there? Those are all of my 19th century, early 20th century travel guides that I use. Wow. And a few of those shelves contain about 100+ books that I'm using right now to write the novel I'm working on. I use about 400 sources for a novel. I can't keep them all here, so I do it in sections. And when I'm done with that section, those books will go away and I'll get another set to go with those. But I use primarily books. I use a few ebooks, but I need an index, and the e-indexes are terrible. So I actually go with books. When I have to use an ebook, I've got to go through the whole book page by page, every single page. And I say all the time, I don't actually read 300 to 400 books, but I read large chunks of 300 to 400 books. And I make notes, and they're about this tall when I'm done. And those are the notes I use when I'm writing the novel. So
I'm going away from my questions now because I find this interesting. So you do your research over, say, 6 months, and then you write, or are you always doing research and always writing?
Well, it's an overlap. While I'm working on the book before, 6 months before I'm about to finish that book, I start researching the next book. And I research and I do some I do outlining. I try to outline the first 100 pages, and I do it. My little helper is working right now. She's going to show you the stack of notes.
I think this is so interesting. So, like, here's the stack of notes, and it's all on yellow legal pad.
I do it the old-fashioned way. I write it. Yeah.
And he just scribbles his notes down, like scribbles a note, takes.
But it's arranged by subject.
It's all stapled together by subject.
So I can find something.
And then you can see here he'll slash through things once he's used something, he slashes through the words.
So I don't repeat it, but I'm only going to use 20% of that stuff.
Right.
80% of it is not going to use, but I need it all down because I have no idea what I'm going to use.
Sorry.
Lucy's working hard back here.
But there's a whole piece of it.
She's like, Lucy with the grapes. She's doing the grapes, so now she's dropping things everywhere.
But there's literally like a whole bin of it over there, and it's just these yellow and white legal pad pieces of paper with his scribble. That's it.
And when the novel's done, I throw them away. I don't.
Do you really? You don't keep them?
What am I going to do with all of them? I don't know what to do with it. So they just go away, and I start over. And it's just the way that works for me. I like to do it the old-fashioned way. I like to write the notes down. I like to have everything where I can get my hands on it. I can see it, touch it, feel it, and it works for me. And no one can do the research for me because I don't know what I'm looking for until I find it. And I'm the only one I know what I'm looking for. So I do all that by myself and gather the books by myself. Most of them are bought at a used bookshop in Jacksonville called the Chamblin Book Mine. It's a huge place. The history section alone is the size of your store.
Wow.
Just the history section.
Yeah, so huge shop.
Oh, he must have 10,000 volumes or more just in history. It's humongous. And it's constantly changing because people are bringing stuff in all the time. So that's sort of my place. And now we live a long way away. We live 3 hours away from there. But so I still make a pilgrimage there about once every few weeks. Wow.
So have you ever just been there, a book catches your eye and that's your new next book?
That's how this book came about. I was there researching another novel and something on the shelf caught my eye and I pulled it off It had nothing to do with what I was doing. It just caught my eye, and then I started going through the book, and that's when I stumbled on to the thing. And so, yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
Wow, that's great. That's great. I also will compliment you and the fact that for authors who do so much research, it's hard to leave those research notes out of the book instead of put them in there and make it dull. And you definitely don't sacrifice your pacing and the fact that it is a compulsively readable thriller by putting everything you read in there. So good job, Steve.
A lot of that credit goes to Elizabeth.
Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy comes in. She will tell me sometimes when she reads the book novel, occasionally she will say a little too much there, a little too much. Sometimes she says not enough. I didn't get it. I need a little more, but mainly it's just a little too much there, a little too much there, and I call that out because she's the first reader, so she can tell me if it's slowing her down a little bit.
That's great. So I will mention again, if you have questions, pop them in there. We have quite a few. We'll get to them in a few minutes. So people find this endlessly fascinating. So do I. It's a writing day. You sit down to write. Do you have a specific beverage? Do you put some music on? What's your routine?
Well, it's odd. I have a very strange routine because I work in the mornings, but I learned to write in a law office. So I learned to write being constantly interrupted. And so I wrote 7 books still as a lawyer. So I would write a little bit. I'd have to get on the phone. I'd have to go see a client. I'd have to go to the court. I'd have to go here or do a closing or whatever I had to do. It was constantly all day long, interruptions, and write a little bit, interrupt. And so I like interruptions, but I don't have any, there's nothing here to interrupt me anymore. It's just the two of us in the house. So I interrupt myself. So what I do is I watch television. I let the TV be my interruption. So like right now, I'm actually binging Grey's Anatomy. I've never watched the show before. And the great part is there's 18 seasons, like 400 episodes. So it's wonderful. So I can watch a little bit of that, stop, write a little bit, cut it back on, write a little bit, cut it back on. I don't write with it on.
Right.
I could. It wouldn't bother me to do that, but I could. But I cut it off. So that's kind of my interruption. So mine involves having something like that. There's television shows I watch, and during the pandemic, I watched every Disney movie there was. So I've run out of movies to watch there. So, but that's how I do it, and it keeps me going and keeps me. I would go insane if it was totally quiet here and nothing was happening. I'm not good at that. And I try to do my 1,000 words a day. And if I can do 1,000 words a day, I can have the novel done in a year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the first time I've heard of the television interruptions when I've asked that question. So I keep asking that question because I always get great answers. Okay. So what is your best tip for aspiring writers?
Well, it's simple. Write. You have to write. You can't talk about it. You can't dream about it. You can't complain about it. You have to sit down and do it. And the only way to learn how to write is to write. No one can teach you how. You have to teach yourself. And you teach yourself by actually doing it. So that's what I tell them all the time. You have to sit down, get a discipline, not an obsession. You don't get obsessed with it. Get a discipline. I work about 6 hours a day. That's about all my brain can take. If my brain's fine and I've got something to say, I'll keep going. But after 5 or 6 hours, if I'm done, okay, I'm done. I've got it done. So you don't get obsessed by it. And I only work 5 days a week. I'll work on the weekends if I feel like it. If I feel like it, I'll do it. If I don't worry about it. But during the week, it doesn't matter whether I feel like it or not. Got to do it. So it's a job. I'm a commercial fiction writer. My publisher wants their manuscript when they want it. And my job is to deliver it on time. I've never come within 2 months of a deadline.
Wow.
I don't, maybe not even 3 months, to be honest with you. I've never even come close to a deadline. No, I try to get my stuff done early and get it to them. And, that's the number one thing a writer has to do is deliver the product when they said they were going to deliver it. Now, occasionally things happen that are beyond your control, medical things and things like that. And your publisher will gladly work with you. But there's no excuse for not delivering the book just because I didn't get it done.
Yeah, fair enough. So you mentioned that there's not going to be any COVID in any of your novels, but were you able to sit down and write your 5 days once the pandemic hit? Or
Oh, yeah, actually, it was even better because I didn't go anywhere. There was
yeah,
nowhere to go. I actually got ahead of myself because there was literally nothing else to do but write, because we were locked down completely. I mean, we've literally been locked down. Other than this house, we were building a house in the middle of the pandemic, and we had to finish the house. But beyond that, we didn't go anywhere or anything. Nothing. I mean, we pretty much stayed. I actually got way ahead of myself.
That's amazing. Writers, in my opinion, are falling into two camps. Either they haven't been able to calm their brains enough to write, or at least for the first 6 months or so, and they're way behind, or they're way ahead. It sounds like you're the overachieving category. All right, go ahead.
You just sit down and get it done, and get it done.
Yep. Well, it doesn't sound like, given your professional background, that you were able to be precious with your writing environment. And so I'm sure that sit down and just write attitude helped in this time too.
Yeah, and as I said, I work very well under pressure too. I'm much more a pressure person. As a lawyer, I was in court 2-3 days every week, and that's a pressure situation. And practice of law is a pressure situation. So I'm used to pressure. Pressure doesn't bother me. In fact, I function better under pressure.
Great. That's a good skill to have. All right. My last question for you before I move on to all of the audience questions is a reading question. It's 3 parts. I'll repeat it as you would like. The first part is, who are some of your writing influences? Then who are some of your favorite authors? Like, who do you never miss a book by? And then the last one is, what have you read and loved recently? So let's start with writing influences.
Well, certainly Michener, he's my favorite writer of all time. So he certainly had a great effect on me. Ludlum, I learned a lot from. Cussler, I learned a lot from. Forsyth, I learned a lot from. These guys were who I would read back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, when that little voice was going in my head telling me to write, and I was ignoring it, but I was paying attention to them. So I learned a lot from those masters. Sharon K. Penman, who just recently died, was one of my favorites. I learned a lot from her, an awful lot of stuff. And so these were people I had great influences on. Who I read today, I'm a thriller junkie. I mean, I read thrillers. Yeah, I read, don't tell him, but I read James Rollins. It's just, I hate to admit it, but I actually do. And I read, Lee Child, I read Lee's, and I read Baldacci, and I read, there's a lot of them. I mean, all the thrillers. I'll particularly like new writers. Yeah. I blurb about 20, 25 books a year. Yeah. So I see a lot of new writers and new stuff before it comes out. So it's nice to see the new stuff. I enjoy that. I don't read as much pure fiction as I used to, simply for time. Yeah. Just time is just not there because I'm going through those 300 to 400 books. What I've read lately is mainly the stuff I'm working on for the novel. And I don't want to really say because I give away some of the stuff, but I'm reading about that most stolen work of art. Let's put it that way. And I'm reading some things about Southern France and some interesting things that happened there, in the middle part of, from about 400 AD to about 800 AD, some interesting things. And so I've been reading about that stuff, some of the stuff that most people would consider kind of dry, but I like to take that dry stuff and put life to it. So that's what I try to do, is put life to it. So I've been reading that, and I've been reading stuff getting ready for the next book, which I said will probably deal with Romania.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to start in with some of these questions. David was wondering, if you could find an appropriate historical event, what country or countries would you like to include to satisfy your bucket list?
Well, certainly, I'd love to do some more South America. It was fun to get cotton down there into Chile and Argentina, and I'd like to do some more of South America. I'd like to do more of Africa too. I just went to South Africa, but I'd like to go into Central Africa. I'd like to do some more there. The problem with Africa is a lot of it, there was no written history. There was not a lot. That doesn't have the heritage I'm looking for to put together that thing from history and the so what. But there are some there, and I've come across 2 or 3 that are very, very interesting. So Africa, Central Africa, may very well be in a novel. I'd love to do Australia and New Zealand with cotton. I've been to both places, love them, and I'd love to do a South Pacific one with him. There's another problem there. No written language, no metal, no wheel. There was a lot of differences down there, you know, in the history. But again, I've come across a couple of things down there too that are interesting that could very well become a Cotton Malone book. I've not sent him to Southeast Asia either. So these are areas I'd like to do, and these are areas I'd love to visit as well. And one day when the world loosens back up, we may be able to do that again. Excellent.
Are you going to have Cotton fail anytime soon?
No, that would be terrible. In fact, he would not let me do that. She would be, Elizabeth over there would go like, what? I actually tried once. The ending of The Emperor's Tomb, the one you'll read in the novel, is not the ending I wrote. I wrote the original ending where Cotton didn't save the day, but he allowed someone else to save the day. And she just went nuts over that.
That is not what happened. McKenna.
Oh, God. Here she comes.
That's not what happened.
Here she comes.
Cotton is over here. I don't even know what he's doing. And this other dude comes in and saves the whole day. And Cotton's just standing over here. And like, the protagonist is.
Yeah. What I just tried to do, now in my defense, I was trying to do something different.
It didn't work.
I was trying to say she hated it. Mark Tavani, who was my editor at the time, hated it. And my agent hated it. Everybody.
And Liz got more shoes.
Yeah, she did. She actually.
I got like 2 pairs of shoes, 2 purses, and he wouldn't even speak of it. He was just like, go, just go.
It took me 30 days to fix that. Yeah. That was not a simple fix now.
Yeah.
But it is much better. So no, inherently by definition, Cotton cannot fail. That is by definition, he cannot fail. Now, can he screw up? Can he make mistakes? Yes, but he needs to recover from them. Absolutely.
All right. We're probably going to get some comments from Liz on this one too, but will you and Liz write a Cotton book together?
Well, we actually do. That's Paulette who asked that question.
Oh, is it?
Paulette asked that question. We actually kind of do, because she's the first reader and she reads the novel and she makes a lot of suggestions. And yes, so it actually kind of works that way now. Yes.
But you could wait. No, I'm sorry.
She's back.
No, this is Steve's thing, but it's really funny because I'll be reading and he puts in arguments that we've had. Like between Cotton and Cassiopeia, it's our words. He takes actual arguments that we've had. He takes our actual conversation, and it's
the problem. No one knows.
I mean, I guess no one knows, but I'm reading along and I'm saying, that's really familiar. And then when he's really messed up with me, he'll put a very sweet comment that Cotton will say to Cassiopeia that Steve did not actually say to me. So then I'm like, oh, honey, oh, I love you. That's amazing. Thank you so much. So that's how he gets his brownie points.
What Elizabeth has done with Cotton is she's softened him up. I have to say, characterization is something I struggle with. I have to work on characterization. I'm very good at plotting. I'm very good at pacing, but characterization is something I really have to work with. And she's very good with characterization. So at her suggestion, I've loosened him up, in a lot of ways. And he's become much more introspective, much more a little bit emotional, but not sappy or anything like that. But he is he's a lot softer than I would have made him if she had not been around. Yes.
Yeah. But I think that probably helps with your well-rounded readership then too, because people like to see all those sides.
That study they did on me a few years ago showed my readership almost 50-50 men and women.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would guess that also from who comes in and buys the books. So it does sound like you and Liz write together. We have another question from David. What part of history, what time period do you find the most interesting to write about?
Well, we used to would have answered that by saying the Middle Ages, but I won't say that anymore. I like the Middle Ages. It's fascinating, but I've actually enjoyed it all. The ancient history books that I did with Alexandria Link and Venetian Betrayal were really cool. I like the American books dealing with the Constitution and more recent, the Cold War, the Dark Ages. I've done a little bit of all of it. So I have to say, I really don't have a favorite anymore. I like each because each one is new to me and interesting. And so I've enjoyed them all. The Middle Ages still probably has a little bit more, a little special place with me. And I do like that probably the most, but I wouldn't say the best.
Gotcha. Okay, we have a guess for the art piece. Should I put it up here and have you confirm or not confirm the most stolen piece of art? Or
Let's see. Let's see.
All right. George was wondering, Adoration of the Mystic Lamb?
Did I answer that question? He is exactly correct.
All right. We're going to pretend this conversation never happened from this point on, but good job, George. Round of applause to you.
Yeah, that Elizabeth and I went and saw it a few years ago. It's in Ghent, and it's if you watch Monuments Men, you know the piece at the very end that they go to get out of there before they blow the mine up. That's actually true. They actually did get it out before the mine would have been destroyed and returned it. So yes, the Ghent altarpiece, and so we're going to be doing. That's what the novel will be dealing with.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to read it. Will you be doing any more with M.J. Rose? Now, you guys do the Cassiopeia Vit novellas, right?
No, we have one more coming. It'll be out this summer called the End of Forever, and it will be out in the summertime. Yeah, we do one more. So that'll give us 5 Cassiopeia Vit novellas. That should be it for a while, and we might bind them together into a book. You never know. But there's one more on the way.
Okay, so we've got some repeat question answers, but they're good questions. So David Simon was wondering, have you ever considered co-authoring with a world leader like Clinton with Patterson or Clinton with Penny?
I'd love to do it. I don't think I'm in the same league of James Patterson and Louise Penny, so that probably wouldn't qualify for it. But I'd love to do something with someone. I think it'd be a lot of fun to do a thriller with someone at a world leader level who would like to participate in creating that novel.
Yeah, absolutely. It does sound fun. I'm just going to friendly reminder that these comments are not the place for political remarks, and they will be deleted if any ensue. All right. So when did you decide to use a co-writer and why?
Well, I've been wanting to do the Luke Daniels books. Now, the question is, do I get some help? I can't write 2 books a year. There's no way in the world. It takes me 18 months to write a Cotton Malone book. And it takes everything I got just on that one book because of all the research and all the things and trying to keep it 90% to reality. It's hard. It just takes time. And I can't do 2. So the choice was never tell the stories or get some help and tell the stories. So Grant and I got together. I had a plot. Him and I plotted the book out. I came up with what I wanted to do, and then him and I went through it. And then he's working that first draft, and then that first draft will come to me, and then I'll rework it. Then it'll go back to him, and he'll do some edit, and go back to me. We'll go back and forth. So when we're done, it will actually be both of us writing the novel literally together. But I still need that initial help for that rough first draft. And he is so good at that, and he's so good at writing. And I have a feeling I'm not going to have to do a whole lot to it, because he's so good at it. So it was the decision of whether never to tell the stories or get some help and tell them. So that's where we're going to try it and see what happens. They'll be a little different than Cotton. There'll be a little more action adventure, but they'll still have a historical hook. But there'll be a little more Clive Cussler-like in the action adventure type of area.
Well, you've definitely chosen someone who has this exact experience under his belt. So it should be second nature to him by now to take your ideas and make them great. So this is interesting. What happens to those 300 or 400 books that you're finished with using when you're putting together a novel?
Real simple. They go in a box and they go back to the Chamberlain book mine, and he gives me credit and we start all over again. Very simple.
Excellent.
I do it all the time. I don't keep any of them. I don't have any place to keep them. I may keep 1 or 2 at that many, but I just don't have a place to keep them. They go back to him. They know when I come back with my boxes, they know that one's over, time to start again. I said, yep, time to go again. And I have a credit. I have a perpetual credit there. One of the rules we had is I wasn't going to move more than an hour from there, but we've moved now to Orlando. So we're 3 hours away, but I'll still make that pilgrimage there.
That's great. So are there any interesting stories about when you had a eureka moment that led to a plot or storyline?
Well, that happened several times, yes. I mean, when I was walking the Kremlin and the lady kept talking about the fourth Rome, and she explained to me what it meant. The Romanov prophecy came to me when we were at an event, and a guy told me about Kamal Salibi and showed me Salibi's books. Well, boom, the Alexandria link, there it was. This book, when I found that book on the shelf and just pulled it off. That happens more often than you think. But here's the thing. It never happens if you go looking for it. It has to find you. And it's always found me. So I've had that several times and I realize when I look at it, I go, that's a novel. There's a novel there. When I saw the Ghent altarpiece, I knew there was a novel there. I said, there's a novel. Now, it's been hard. I will tell you right now. It's been a toughie to put it together, but there is a novel there. And so those kind of eureka moments are more common than you think.
Fantastic. So I'm going to use this person's question as a reminder that if you missed the beginning of this, as soon as YouTube archives it, you'll be able to go and watch from the beginning, or as soon as we're done live, you can watch it from the beginning on Facebook. But I'm going to pull this up. You can do a short answer. Did Elizabeth get a new purse for Kaiser's Web?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
So Danielle from Minotaur was wondering, how have you never discussed Grey's Anatomy? And then
you can share for some of your trips to progress. Yeah, first time I've ever mentioned Grey's Anatomy here. Yeah. The great thing about Grey's Anatomy is there's so many. So it's like 400 hours. There's plenty of stuff. But serious favorite travel story. Well, I mean, there's been a lot of those. I mean, there's one that I tell all the time. I've told a million times about Paris, but we have so many where we go and find things.
To go to Ely. That was a really neat story.
Yeah, when we went to Ely was really amazing. We were in England to do the London Book Fair, and that was the year the volcano erupted, and you couldn't fly back and forth across the Atlantic.
The Icelandic one.
Yes.
Iceland, yeah.
Right. And so no one could come to the book fair. But we had gone early because my British publisher wanted me there early to do promotional stuff. So we were there beforehand. So all the Random House people were supposed to come. And of course, everything goes, you can't do it. So we're actually stuck in in England for 3 days. Now, it wasn't so bad because we were in a suite at the Churchill Hotel, which was kind of nice that the publisher had put us in. So it wasn't too bad. But we kind of, what do we do? What do we do? So we went, we did some promotional stuff, and we went up to a little town called Ely. And Ely has a huge cathedral. It's a beautiful cathedral. And we were waiting to kill a little time before we had to go do the event. And we were walking through the cathedral, and the lady there was showing us around, and she was explaining all this stuff. And she suddenly said something about, and with the Bisley Boy legend, everything is at that. And I went, whoa. Time out. Let's back up. You said the Bisley Boy legend, as if I'm supposed to know what that is. Whoa, explain. And so she did. She looked at me like, well, of course you should know what it is, but I don't live there, so I didn't know all that. So she explained it to me. And when she explained it to me, I realized there was a novel there. And so I spent the next 3 days researching, very quick, fast researching all over London. And that novel became The King's Deception. So, that's one of those things where I was in the right place where the idea found me. I didn't find it, it found me, and I recognized it. And we had the time. And over the next 3-4 days, I did all of the research for that novel and all of the places there that took place in London and Oxford and other places. We did it. And I came back, and a couple of years later, I wrote The King's Deception. So that's how it works out sometimes.
That's great. Gerald was wondering, it seems as if your books would make for a great TV series or feature film. You must have had some offers over the years. Are you interested?
Oh, yeah, it's been optioned like 4 times. It's been optioned right now. And the producers called about a week ago, and they do call all the time, and they say, we're this close. It's going to happen. We're right there. The deal's going to be made. And of course, then nothing ever happens. So I don't get too, oh no, she says it can be happening. She's the eternal optimist over here. But I don't get too excited about it. I'll get excited about it when they bring the check and say, here it is, and we're ready to go. That's not happened. We've come close a few times, and we'll see here if it works out. It would be really neat to see it come alive. But the problem with my stuff is you got to film it in Europe. So, you can't do that right now. So, you gotta go over there. You can't, there's no way to fake those locales because they're actually part of the novel. They're a character in the book and you've got to actually be in those locales. So, but the producers recognize that and they know that. But so we'll see. It would make the thing is when you go to all the streaming services, every single one of them, there's nothing like what I write on there. There's no action, history, secrets, conspiracies kind of thing on there. It's a lot of fantasy. There's a lot of other stuff, but there's not just the raw modern day international suspense thriller with that historical hook treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Not there. Yeah. So it looks like there'd be room for one. Just one. Can we do it? But we'll see.
I'm with Liz. I'm ever the optimist on it. I think it'd be great. All right. Which of your 20 books do you consider your best?
The one I just finished. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. If a writer doesn't answer that question that way, there's something wrong. I was on a panel once where the writer was asked that question, and the writer said, well, the book I wrote about 5 years ago was my best one. And I wanted to ask him, excuse me, what have you done for the last 5 years? I mean, your craft should be evolving. You should be getting a little better at it. You never get good at it or perfect at it. You just get a little better than you were at it. And so the last thing you wrote, and it's not, by the way, the Kaiser's Web, it's what I'm working on right now, is what it is. So that should always be the answer. That's the best I can do because it's the most I know that I put into it. So that's always be my answer to that.
Well, this question that just popped up is kind of relevant to that. Do you have any books you started but got stuck and never finished?
No, I never had that happen, but I did throw away the first 30,000 words of the Templar Legacy years ago because the Cotton Malone I was creating in that was not right. It just didn't work. And when I was in Copenhagen, I'd already started the book before I went to Copenhagen on vacation in 2001, 2002. And when I got there, the new Cotton Malone came to my brain that he's going to live here. He's going to be a retired Justice Department agent. He's going to own an old bookshop. He all came to me there. And I went back home, tossed those words in the garbage and started over. And that's the only time I've ever done that. Most of the times I've thought about what I'm going to write for a very long time. Now, do I discard ideas constantly? Absolutely. But once I set on the idea and I've got the ooh factor and the so what and all the things there, no, it's let's go. There's no turning back then.
So one of our commenters has asked me to formulate a question for you. Excuse me. Essentially, do you have any thoughts on why so many lawyers become authors?
Well, most of them write in their field. Most of them write legal thrillers. So and a lot happens as a lawyer. I had a lot happen to me, an enormous amount of things that would have made stories and novels. But, I don't write legal thrillers. So I wrote my stuff to escape what I was doing because I was doing divorces and criminal defense and all the things where people were at their worst. So I wanted to write to get away from that. So most lawyers, yes, they have all these things that happen to them and they want to novelize it, and that's great. And I'm not saying I would never write a legal thriller. I actually would probably like to give it a try, but it would be a legal thriller with a twist. It wouldn't be your ordinary legal thriller. I have an idea for one that would be a little bit different.
Not just your standard courtroom drama.
A little more to it than that. And who knows, I might do it one day.
Awesome. How's Cotton's son?
Doing great. I may bring Gary back one day. I haven't decided what to do. In Cotton's world, no one's aged. Everyone's kind of locked in. Cotton's staring down 50. Gary's still 16, 17. I've locked everything down, stopped it. And you never know. We may come back and see Gary again one day. It just haven't had a story where it would fit or work. I'm keeping him overseas for now. But who knows? You never know. I won't say never.
Okay, we have a specific idea question. Is there any chance you'll ever write about Oak Island and the money pit?
Well, I did a little bit, not on Oak Island, but I did my version of it in the Jefferson Key. So there was a little bit of that in the Jefferson Key, but no, I probably won't do that. That's kind of been done. I actually take a different position on Oak Island than most people. How they say the two young lads saw the light over on the island in the middle part of the 18th century. They rowed over, they went over there, and there's a thing in the ground that had been dug out, and they started digging down looking for what had been buried. Well, I take the different position. I think what they saw was the people coming to dig it up. And so it's already gone.
Yeah.
What was there was gone. And to me, that's a more plausible situation. And, you know, but I did use the stone with the inscriptions is in Jefferson Key. And I used a lot of the elements of Oak Island. You know, that stone's never been seen again. It's gone. So once it's gone, it's fair game. You know, I can do what I want with it. So I've used a lot of those elements, but I don't think I would ever do anything directly with it. No. The best book I ever read on that was what Doug Preston and Lincoln Child did, the book they did on it, which was just wonderful.
Yeah, they're excellent. Will we see former President Daniels again?
Yeah, he's in this book. He's here. He's in the Kaiser's Web, absolutely. And he'll be back around. I'm not going to get rid of him at all. He'll be coming out. He's a senator from Tennessee, and he's in this novel. He's in the first 40% of the book. He's there.
Yes, he is. I was just popping that up on the screen. All right, so I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. There are some more questions, but they are for things that we have covered earlier in the chat. So like I said, if I haven't put your question up on the screen, whether it's reading tastes or similar things like that, just rewatch from the beginning. It has been answered. I think I've gotten to all the other original questions. Liz, you doing okay back there?
I'm good.
All right.
It was so good to see you. Thanks, McKenna.
Of course, it's good to see both of you. As I said, we have copies of the Kaiser's Web. We also have signed book plates. The link is in the comments if you'd like any more information about the book or if you'd like to order it. A big thank you to both of you for joining me here tonight to talk about the book, and all best as always.
Thanks for having us. We'll see you next year, hopefully in person.
In person. I'm going to hold you to it. You guys have a great night. Bye.
Bye.